My mom's new husband was supposed to be our fresh start, but instead, he became a toxic stepdad who manipulated, abused, and tore our family apart. For years, I fought alone against his lies and control, until one day I found the strength to fight back and take my life, and my mom back. I, 16 am now, 15 when this started, used to think it was just me. Like, maybe I was being dramatic or selfish or too sensitive. That's what my mom kept telling me, that I needed to give him a chance, that I was just afraid of change. But deep down, I knew something was wrong with Rick from the second he moved in. My mom met Rick a year after my dad passed. Cancer, slow and cruel. She took it hard. Obviously, we both did. For a while, we were just two broken people trying to survive. It sucked, but it was real. Then Rick showed up. He was charming in that fake TV stepdad way. Too nice, too interested, too quick to make himself part of our lives. He met my mom at some grief support group. Said he knew what it was like to lose someone. Within 6 months, he was spending the night. By month 8, he had a drawer. By the end of the year, they were married. I never got a say. Rick was always smiling, but never with his eyes. You know that kind of smile? Where the mouth goes up, but everything else stays cold. He'd say things like, "Hey, buddy," but always felt like a warning. At first, it was little things. Like how he started making rules for me, even though he wasn't my dad. No video games past 8. No food in your room. Start mowing the lawn every Saturday. Fine. Whatever. He lived here now. I got it. But then it got worse. He'd make jokes that weren't jokes. Like calling me lazy if I forgot to put a dish away. Or saying, if I were your real dad, you wouldn't get away with this crap. And if I told Mom, she'd tell me I was being disrespectful and not giving Rick a fair shot. That's when I realized he wasn't just manipulating me. He was manipulating her, too. He'd whisper things to her when he thought I wasn't listening, about how I was acting out, how I needed discipline. And she started changing, started siding with him more and more, started looking at me like I was the problem. And that's when the real mind games began. One night, I woke up and all my stuff, my Xbox, my laptop, even some clothes, was missing. Rick told me I was being punished for slamming my door. I hadn't slammed it. I swear I didn't, but he swore I did. And Mom backed him up. I started questioning myself. Maybe I did slam it? Maybe I was being too sensitive? Maybe it was my fault. But no, I wasn't crazy. Rick just wanted control, and he wasn't done yet. It didn't take long for things to go from bad to manipulative as hell. Rick was a master at twisting things. If I said something with a tone, he'd repeat it later to my mom like I'd curse him out. If I tried to walk away from an argument, he'd tell her I stormed off and disrespected him. If I didn't walk away, he'd say I was aggressive and trying to intimidate him. And my mom, she started believing him. She stopped looking at me like her son. I swear to God, she looked at me like I was a problem to be managed, like some teenage delinquent instead of the kid who used to bring her tea when she cried after Dad died. That look in her eyes killed something in me. But Rick? Oh, Rick was trying his best. Always calm, always polite when she was around. He'd say things like, I'm just trying to be a father figure to him, but he makes it so difficult. Or, I care about him too, honey. That's why this hurts me so much. Give that man an Oscar. One night, I overheard something that finally made the pieces click. I was walking past their bedroom, on the way to the bathroom. Their door was cracked open, and Rick was saying, if he keeps acting like this, maybe boarding school's the right move. He's out of control, and it's affecting you, babe. We deserve peace. Boarding school? What the hell? I hadn't even done anything. I barely slept that night. And then, the next day, I found something. Rick had gone out to run errands, and I finally had the house to myself. Something just snapped inside me. I needed to know who this guy really was. So I went into the garage where he kept all his crap and opened one of the tool drawers he always locked up. The key was under his car's floor mat. I'd seen him hide it once. Inside was a folder, like an actual physical folder full of papers. And at the very top, a court document, restraining order. I skimmed it, hand shaking. It wasn't for me. It wasn't even for my mom. It was from another woman, filed 2 years ago. A woman named Dina. The form described verbal harassment, emotional destabilization, and coercive control of her teenage son. It hit me like a punch in the gut. Rick had done this before. To another family, another kid. I took pictures of everything. Every page. My heart was hammering the whole time. I knew if he caught me, I didn't know what he'd do. But I had proof now. And for the first time since he walked into our lives, I finally had power. I waited until after dinner. Rick was out back, pretending to fix a shed light, or whatever stupid man of the house crap he was doing that night. I sat across from my mom at the kitchen table, my phone in hand, and I said calmly, "We need to talk." She gave me that tired mom look, the kind that says, "What now?" I didn't waste time. I found something in Rick's stuff. I said, "He has a restraining order from another woman." She said he mentally abused her son. Her face went pale like I'd smacked her. But before she could speak, I unlocked my phone, swiped the photos, and slid across the table. She stared at the screen for way too long. I watched her eyes scan each word, her jaw tightening. Her fingers twitched like she didn't know whether to throw the phone or throw up. Finally, she whispered, "Where did you get this?" I told her the truth. I told her I took the key from his car and found the folder in the garage. I was honest because I thought maybe, finally, she'd see what I'd been dealing with. Instead, she slammed the phone on the table and snapped, "You went through his things?" That moment, I'll never forget it. Not what she said, but how she said it. Like I was the one who betrayed her. I stood up, stunned. "Mom, are you serious right now? You're mad at me?" She stood up too. "You invaded his privacy, and now you expect me to just believe some paper from God knows where." He told me his ex was crazy. People make stuff up all the time, especially jealous women. I wanted to scream. He did this to her kid, Mom. I said, "Don't you get it? He's doing the same thing to me. And you're letting him." And that's when the back door creaked open. Rick walked in slowly. Calm. Too calm. And he was smiling. "I was wondering how long it'd take," he said softly, setting down his gloves. My mom turned to him, wild-eyed. "Is it true?" He didn't deny it. He didn't admit it either. He just walked up, wrapped his arm around her waist like he owned her, and said, "Do you believe him or do you believe me?" She didn't say anything. Not at first. And then she looked at me like I was some stranger, like I wasn't her son. And she said the one sentence I never thought I'd hear come out of her mouth. "I think you need to go stay with your aunt for a while." I didn't cry in front of them. I refused. I went upstairs, packed my bag in silence, and walked past Rick like he wasn't even there. He was leaning against the wall with that smug look on his face, like he'd just won some long chess match. My mom didn't even look up from the couch. That hurt more than anything. My Aunt Sharon lived 40 minutes away. She was my dad's sister. Thank God, because if she'd been from my mom's side, I'm not sure she would believe me. But Aunt Sharon? She saw through Rick the first time she met him. Told me over lunch once, "That man's hiding something. Sweetheart, your mom's too lonely to see it." I called her from the driveway. Told her everything. She didn't ask questions. Just told me to come. Told me I had a bed. Told me I had family. I got there just before midnight. She hugged me like she knew I'd been holding it all in for way too long. And when I showed her the court documents I found, she went quiet for a long time, then said, "We're not letting this go." She let me crash on her pull-out couch that night, and the next morning she made pancakes, just like she used to when I was a kid and my dad was still around. For the first time in weeks, I felt safe, but I also felt angry. Not just at Rick, but at my mom. She kicked me out for him. Over the next few days, Sharon helped me put together a plan. We printed the documents. She called a friend who worked at a local paper, some reporter guy who owed her a favor. We gathered text messages, my journal entries, even old voicemails Rick had left me when he thought no one else was listening. The guy was careful, but not that careful. And then my mom called. At first, I didn't answer. Let it go to voicemail. Then the text came in. Can we talk? I miss you. Rick said he wanted to apologize. Why are you doing this to us? Us? Sharon told me not to answer until we had more leverage. But part of me still wanted my mom to see what he really was. To wake up, to be the person she used to be before grief made her blind. Then Rick made his next move. 3 days after I left, Sharon came home from work with a strange look on her face. She handed me her phone. You're not going to believe this, she said. It was a video from Facebook. Rick, sitting in our old living room, tearfully telling a story about his troubled stepson, accusing me of stealing from him, saying I was violent, that he feared for my mom's safety. He even had the audacity to say he regretted trying to be a father to a boy who didn't want to be saved. And worst of all, the post had hundreds of likes and shares. The court of public opinion, it was already turning. And I knew then I couldn't just fight this quietly anymore. I didn't sleep that night. I kept rewatching Rick's Facebook video. Every fake tear, every calculated pause. The comments were full of strangers calling me ungrateful, dangerous, spoiled. Some even said my mom should cut me off completely. It was like watching a version of reality that had been rewritten by a lunatic. And the worst part? My mom liked the post. She didn't comment. She didn't share it. But that tiny little blue thumbs up under her name was all I needed to know. She believed it. I showed it to Aunt Sharon the next morning. She didn't say anything for a while, just stared at the screen, her mouth tight. Then she set her coffee down and said, "All right, gloves off." By that evening, her friend at the local paper had agreed to meet with us. We brought everything. The restraining order. Screenshots of Rick's passive-aggressive texts. Photos of bruises on my arm from the time he grabbed me during a fight and said it was just discipline. My own written account. A timeline of events. Sharon backed every word of it. The reporter, Mark, looked exhausted but interested. He said something like, "This is bigger than a family spat. This guy is a manipulator. We see this kind of psychological abuser all the time. They isolate, control, then rewrite the narrative. It's classic." He asked if I wanted to go on record with my name. I hesitated. Part of me was scared of Rick, of public backlash, of what Mom might do if I embarrass her. But the other part of me, the part that had been stepped on, dismissed, gaslit, and abandoned, that part was done hiding. Yeah, I told him. Use my name. I'm not lying. The article dropped 2 days later. It wasn't viral level, but in our town, it was big. The headline read, "Stepfather with history of abuse accused again. Teen speaks out." They included quotes from me and Sharon. They used words like emotional manipulation, coercive control, and pattern of behavior. They even mentioned the previous restraining order and hinted at possible legal issues if Rick continued harassing me. Rick lost his mind. He went full damage control, deleted the Facebook post, made his account private. A few of his co-workers commented under the article with things like, "I always got a weird vibe from him." One even DM'd me to apologize for not speaking up sooner. He tried calling me 10 times, left voicemails alternating between angry rants and fake tearful apologies. And then my mom showed up at Aunt Sharon's door, unannounced, hair messy, eyes puffy, and for the first time since this all started, she didn't look angry. She looked confused, broken, like maybe, just maybe she was finally starting to see the cracks. She stood on the porch like she didn't know whether she was allowed to come in. Aunt Sharon crossed her arms and didn't move from the doorway. "I just want to talk to him," my mom said quietly. I was in the living room. I could hear everything. I didn't even know if I wanted to see her, but part of me still ached for her to be my mom again, the real her, not the one who let Rick take over her brain. Sharon turned and looked at me. "You want to talk to her?" I nodded once. She stepped aside. Mom came in like a ghost. Her mascara was smudged, and her voice cracked the moment she opened her mouth. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. I didn't know. I didn't want to believe. I cut her off. You did know. You just didn't want to deal with it." She broke then, sat on the edge of the couch, and buried her face in her hands. "He told me I was losing you, that you hated me, that I was a bad mom, and that he could help me fix it. I didn't want to be alone again." That hit hard, because deep down I knew her pain. I saw what Dad's death did to her, but she chose him over me. And now she wanted to undo, like this was a bad haircut. I didn't know what to say. I just stared at her. She finally looked up and said, "I want to leave him." That got Sharon's attention, too. She stepped into the room, arms still crossed. "Then you better do it fast. Honey, because that man is dangerous. And now the whole town knows it." Mom nodded, eyes wide with shame. The three of us talked for over an hour. We laid it all out. The emotional abuse, the gaslighting, the smear campaign. Mom said she hadn't seen the article yet. Rick had blocked the local news sites on their Wi-Fi because they were full of lies. She promised she'd leave him. She even said she'd start staying with a friend from work and begin filing for separation. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something in my gut told me Rick wasn't going to let her walk away that easily. I was right. That night, around 1:30 a.m., we were all asleep when someone started banging on the front door. Hard, over and over. Bang, bang, bang. Sharon was up before I was. She looked out to the curtain and went pale. "It's him," she whispered. I peeked out too. Rick was standing on the porch, shirtless, drunk, fists clenched, screaming. "You think you can ruin my ****ing life, you little liar? Open this damn door." Sharon called the police immediately. Mom was shaking like a leaf behind her. Rick started slamming his body against the door. "You think you're safe in there? Huh? You think this is over?" Red and blue lights pulled into the driveway 5 minutes later, but it felt like an hour. Rick tried to run. Idiot. But they tackled him in the front yard and cuffed him on the spot. Turns out he was already on thin ice with a probation officer from another case. Yeah, another case. The man had skeletons in every closet he'd ever walked past. And suddenly, my story wasn't just a family drama anymore. It was a criminal investigation. Rick was arrested for trespassing, attempted forced entry, and public intoxication. But that was just the start. The police searched his car after the arrest and found an unregistered firearm under the passenger seat, along with burner phone, a flash drive, and this part still makes my skin crawl, a worn photo of my mom and me taped to the inside of his glove box. That wasn't love. That was obsession. The flash drive was encrypted, but the cops cracked it 2 days later. It had folders labeled with names. Dozens of them. Most of them were women. A few were teens. Some files had scanned documents, IDs, photos, legal forms. One folder was full of screenshots of private Facebook messages between my mom and her friends, going back before she ever met Rick. It was clear. He'd been watching her long before he accidentally met her at that grief group. He wasn't just manipulative. He was calculating, predatory, strategic, the kind of evil that hides behind smiles and sir and ma'am. A detective called us in to go over what they found. My mom was a mess during the entire interview. Sharon sat beside her, jaw clenched, while I just stared at the table. I felt like I was watching someone else's life play out. But the detective wasn't done. Turns out, Rick had been investigated twice before in 2 different states. Both times, the charges had been dropped for lack of evidence or uncooperative witnesses. One case involved a woman who filed for a restraining order and then mysteriously moved across the country 2 weeks later. Another was a 17-year-old boy who accused Rick of mental and physical abuse, almost the exact same stuff I went through. It was like I was walking in someone else's footprints and didn't even know it. And the scariest part? No one had ever connected the dots until now. My mom broke down in the middle of the meeting, full-on sobbing, holding her face in her hands, whispering over and over, I didn't know. But I wasn't crying. I was angry because she should have known. because she let him into our home, because she defended him, let him isolate me, watched him twist the story, and chose him anyway. I don't know if I'll ever forgive her for that. After the meeting, Sharon drove us home in silence. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that photo in his glove box, the way my mom looked in it, the way I did, just a kid, smiling, innocent. He'd been planning something. And even though he was locked up now, I couldn't shake the feeling that the damage wasn't over. Because monsters like Rick don't just ruin the moment. They ruin the memory of everything that came before. 3 days after the police cracked Rick's flash drive, we got another knock on the door. It wasn't violent like Rick's. It was quiet, polite. 2 people stood on the porch. A woman in her early 30s with a badge clipped to her blazer, and a man holding a small notepad. They introduced themselves as investigators from Child Protective Services. "I'm not a child," I said immediately. "I'm 16, almost 17. The woman nodded. "We understand. But given the circumstances of the arrest, the nature of the evidence found, and the public attention this case is getting, we're required to do a welfare check and follow up on all parties who lived in the home." It wasn't just a formality. They had questions, a lot of them. They asked about my mom, about whether she ever knew what Rick was doing, whether she ever enabled it, whether she had neglected to protect me. I could see my mom starting to unravel again. Her hands were shaking, her voice warbled, but then they pulled me aside. Alone, we sat in Aunt Sharon's sunroom, door closed, and the woman looked me in the eyes and said, "This is a safe space. No judgment. We just need the truth." So I told them everything. From the beginning, from the first jokes Rick made that weren't really jokes, to the punishments that escalated for things I didn't do, to the way my mom slowly stopped defending me and started parroting everything he said. I told him about the night I got kicked out, the article, the Facebook smear post, the police call, the photo in the glove box. When I finished, the room was silent. Then the woman quietly said, "Do you feel safe with your mother?" I hesitated, because the answer wasn't yes. "Not anymore. Not really. I feel safe with my aunt," I finally said. They nodded, thanked me, and stepped outside to speak with my mom. That conversation was longer. I watched through the window as my mom tried to keep herself composed, tried to explain things away. But she couldn't talk circles around these people. These were professionals who'd seen the same story play out in too many homes, too many variations, with too many broken kids. When they left, they told Sharon and my mom that they'd be filing a full report, and that further steps may be necessary. I didn't ask what that meant, but later that night, I overheard my mom cry in the bathroom. Not just crying, sobbing. And through the door, I heard her whisper, "They're going to take him away from me." She wasn't talking about Rick. She was talking about me. And in that moment, I realized my mom wasn't a victim anymore. She was part of the damage. A week after CPS came by, I was called in for a meeting at their office. My mom didn't want to come. She said she was too overwhelmed. Aunt Sharon came with me. The room was small and sterile. The walls were pale blue, trying to look calm but failing. Across from me sat 2 caseworkers who looked like they'd heard everything. And then some. They laid it out clear. I had 2 options. Option 1, return home with a safety plan in place. That meant my mom agreeing to get counseling and Rick being legally barred from the house, which seemed unlikely since he was still fighting charges. Option 2, be declared a ward of the state, in need of protection, which meant foster care or placement with a relative like Aunt Sharon, and a formal investigation into the home environment. They asked what I wanted. I looked at Aunt Sharon, then at them. "I don't feel safe at home," I said flatly. "I want to stay with my aunt." That sealed it. The caseworkers nodded, and the paperwork started. I signed forms I barely understood, papers about custody, visitation, and emotional abuse. It felt like an official death sentence on the life I'd known. I called my mom that night. I told her I wasn't coming back. She begged me to reconsider. I told her I loved her, but I needed to protect myself. She didn't respond. Weeks dragged on. Rick's legal case was moving slowly but surely. Charges piled up. Harassment, emotional abuse, trespassing, illegal possession of a firearm, and more. Mom started attending therapy sessions, but I could tell the damage between us wasn't just a broken leg. It was a shattered bone. School was rough. Rumors spread about me and my crazy stepdad. Some teachers were sympathetic, some distant. I felt invisible. But Aunt Sharon, she was my rock. And slowly, I started to realize that sometimes the hardest fight isn't winning someone back. It's choosing to walk away. After everything, I thought I was alone. Like I'd lost not just my home, but my family, my identity. But life, it surprises you sometimes. It started with a message from my school counselor, Ms. Perez. She asked if I wanted to talk, just to vent, no pressure. I was hesitant, but I agreed. Our talks became weekly. She listened without judgment, asked the right questions, and helped me make sense of the chaos. She even connected me with a support group for teens dealing with toxic family situations. Then there was Jake. I met him in the group. He'd been through something similar. A stepdad who was a nightmare. We bonded over shared stories, silent understandings, and a lot of bad jokes. Slowly, I started to feel like myself again. Not the scared kid who was pushed out of his home. Not the troubled teen in the news article. Just me. Aunt Sharon helped too. She found me a part-time job at the local bookstore. She said having something stable would help me focus on the future instead of the past. I threw myself into work and school, therapy, and friends. Every day was a battle, but also a step forward. And the best part? I started to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could be okay. The day of the hearing arrived faster than I expected. My stomach twisted into knots the whole morning. Aunt Sharon drove me to the courthouse, her grip tight on the steering wheel, like she was holding herself together for both of us. Rick showed up in a sharp suit, looking calm and collected, like he was some victim about to clear his name. His lawyer, a slick, confident woman, wasted no time trying to tear me apart. They called me a liar, said I was exaggerating to break up a perfect family. They brought up my age, saying teenagers could be emotional and impulsive. They painted me as the bad kid, the one causing trouble, trying to ruin Rick's reputation. I almost crumbled, but then my mom spoke. Not for me, for Rick. She told the court she still loved him but was scared, that she didn't fully understand everything until now, that she felt trapped between her grief and a man she thought was her savior, but turned out to be a nightmare. Her voice cracked, tears streaming down her face. It was the most honest thing she'd said in months. The judge looked at her, then at me, then at Rick. This was no longer about black and white. It was about a broken family trying to survive the mess. The judge ruled in my favor, granting me protective custody with Aunt Sharon and ordering Rick to stay away. But the hardest part was watching my mom walk out of that courtroom, knowing she had to choose between the man she married and the son she still loved. After the court ruling, I thought things would calm down, that Rick would disappear from our lives, and Mom would finally start healing. But life doesn't work in neat little boxes. A week later, my phone buzzed. It was Mom. "Can we talk?" she texted. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to protect myself. But another part, the part that still missed my mom, answered. We met at a small cafe, the kind where nobody knew our story. She looked fragile, her eyes red but sincere. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "for everything, for doubting you, for letting him hurt us both." I nodded, fighting back tears. "I'm sorry, too, for being angry, for walking away." We didn't solve everything that day. Trust wasn't rebuilt overnight, but it was a start. Meanwhile, Rick wasn't done. He launched a legal counterattack, trying to claim visitation rights, trying to discredit me further, even threatening Aunt Sharon. But I was ready. Therapy had given me tools. Friends gave me support. And most of all, I found strength inside myself I never knew existed. I wasn't just surviving. I was fighting back. Rick's desperation grew with every failed attempt to regain control. One afternoon, Aunt Sharon called me, voice shaking. Rick showed up at my house. He was threatening, angry, said if he couldn't have you, no one would. I felt my heart drop. I wasn't safe anywhere. We called the police again. This time, They issued a restraining order. No contact, no approaching me or Aunt Sharon. But Rick didn't stop. That night, I got a message from an unknown number. A photo of my bedroom window at night. The caption read, "You can't hide forever." Fear hit me hard, but it didn't break me. I told my therapist. The police increased patrols. My school was alerted. For the first time, I felt the law was on my side. Rick was trying to terrorize me, but I was no longer the scared kid who hid in silence. After months of legal battles, the judge made official. Full custody was awarded to Aunt Sharon, with strict no-contact orders against Rick. Any attempt he made to approach me or my mom would result in immediate arrest. Rick's grip on our lives was finally broken. It wasn't a perfect ending. There were still scars, still painful memories that wouldn't disappear overnight. But I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I was safe. I was free. Mom started rebuilding herself too, going to therapy, joining support groups, trying to heal from the damage Rick caused. Me? I focused on school, on work, on friends, and on rediscovering who I was beyond the nightmare. Each day was a little brighter. Each step forward was a victory. And slowly, I began to believe in a future where I wasn't defined by what happened. Looking back on everything, I realize how complicated toxic relationships can be, especially when the person hurting you is someone your family loves and trusts. Rick wasn't just a bad stepdad. He was a manipulator, a liar, and someone who thrived on control. But the hardest part wasn't just surviving him. It was watching my mom get caught in his web, torn between love and fear. I learned that sometimes love isn't enough to fix things. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. I hope my story helps someone out there who's feeling trapped or silenced. You're not alone. There are people who will believe you, fight for you, and help you find your way back. And to my mom, I hope one day you see the truth clearly and find peace. I still love you, but I have to protect myself first. This isn't the end. It's a new beginning. Thank you for reading. A broken kid who's learning how to heal.